He ignored them all until Thomas stormed in without knocking. "This is a disaster," Thomas said, throwing a newspaper onto the table. "They are demanding a statement. You need to say something before this destroys everything." Ethan picked up the paper, his expression unreadable. "Who leaked this?" "We do not know yet," Thomas replied. "But the board is furious. They are calling an emergency meeting. If you do not distance yourself from her, they will pull support." The words hit Lena like a punch. "Distance yourself," she repeated, her voice trembling. Ethan's eyes met hers, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw hesitation, fear. "Lena, listen," he began. "You have to understand." "Understand what?" she interrupted. "That I was never more than a prop?" Thomas cleared his throat. "Miss Quinn, it might be best if you leave quietly until this blows over. The contract allows for early termination under." "Do not," Ethan snapped, his voice low and dangerous. "Do not quote the contract to her." Thomas stepped back but said nothing. Lena turned away, blinking back tears. "It is fine," she said. "He is right. It is all just business." She went to her room, packed her things, and removed the ring that had started it all. When she set it on the nightstand, it clinked softly, final and cold. Hours later, she was gone. The city swallowed her up just as the rain began to fall again. For 2 days, Ethan did not leave the penthouse. He ignored calls, messages, and meetings. The silence was unbearable. Every corner of the apartment reminded him of her, the cup she used for tea, the faint scent of her perfume, the music sheets still sitting on the piano. On the 3rd day, Thomas returned with grim news. "The board has voted. They want you to make a public apology and announce the engagement was fabricated." Ethan stared at him. "They want me to lie. They want you to survive," Thomas replied. Ethan rose slowly from his chair, his face pale but resolute. "Then maybe I am done surviving." That evening, he walked into the press conference, cameras flashing like lightning. The journalists fired questions, but he raised a hand for silence. "You want the truth," he said, his voice steady but raw. "Yes, the engagement started as a contract. I needed someone to fix my image, but somewhere along the way, I stopped caring about the image and started caring about her." The room fell silent. "You call it scandal," he continued, "but I call it the only real thing I have had in years." With that, he stepped away from the podium and left the room, ignoring the chaos behind him. Outside, rain poured in sheets, soaking through his suit. He walked until the noise of the city faded and only the sound of rain remained. Somewhere across town, in a tiny apartment she could barely afford, Lena watched the broadcast through blurred eyes. She had told herself not to care, not to hope, but hearing him say those words broke something open inside her. She whispered to the empty room, "You fool, you are supposed to save your company, not me." But deep down, she knew she still loved him. The storm outside raged on, but for the first time, both of them had stopped pretending. The next morning, the fallout was everywhere. Ethan's confession had gone viral. Half the world called him reckless, the other half called him brave. Vale Biotech stock dropped overnight, and the board demanded his resignation. But for the first time in years, Ethan did not feel trapped. He had told the truth, and somehow that truth had freed him. Meanwhile, Lena tried to rebuild her life quietly. She found temporary work at a small community clinic, taking extra shifts to pay rent. Every time someone recognized her from the headlines, she forced a smile and said, "It is all in the past." But late at night, when the clinic was empty, she replayed his words from the press conference, over and over, until the ache in her chest dulled. 2 weeks passed before their paths crossed again. It was raining, of course it was, when she saw him standing outside the clinic door, drenched, holding an umbrella he clearly had not used. "You should not be here," she said, her voice cautious. "I lost the company," he said simply. "The board voted me out. I thought you should hear it from me before you read it online." She hesitated. I am sorry, Ethan. Do not be, he said. It feels strange, but I think it is the first honest thing that has happened to me in years. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I came to return this, he said, handing her the engagement ring. She stared at it, the same band that had once symbolized a lie. I do not want it, she whispered. Neither do I, he said, closing her fingers around it. But maybe we can start over. No contracts. No cameras. Just us. She shook her head, tears threatening. It is not that simple. It never was, he said softly. But I will wait, Lena. However long it takes. She looked at him for a long moment, seeing not the billionaire or the scandal, but the man who had stood in front of the world and chosen truth over power. The rain fell harder, washing the city in silver. You should go, she said finally. You will get sick. He smiled faintly. Maybe that is what it takes to feel human again. When he turned to leave, she called out his name. Ethan. He stopped. Thank you, she said. For saying it out loud. He nodded once and walked away, his figure fading into the storm. That night, Lena sat on her small couch, the ring still in her palm. She realized it no longer looked like a symbol of shame. It looked like a promise waiting for the right moment. And somewhere across the city, Ethan stood at his window, watching the same rain fall, hoping that someday, somehow, that moment would come. 3 months passed before Lena saw Ethan again, but his name never left the news. Every article described his downfall as a cautionary tale, yet quietly, something else was happening. Ethan had started a new foundation, one dedicated to funding medical programs for low-income families. The irony was not lost on Lena. He had lost his empire but was finally doing something that mattered. One cold January morning, while Lena was finishing her shift at the clinic, her supervisor approached her with a strange smile. Someone left this for you, she said, handing over a sealed envelope. Inside was an invitation printed on thick ivory paper. The Vale Foundation invites you to the launch of the Carter Vale Recovery Center. Seattle General Hospital rooftop, 6 p.m. Lena's hands trembled as she read it. She told herself not to go, but by sunset, she found herself climbing the rooftop stairs anyway. The city spread below her, washed in golden light. At the far end of the terrace stood Ethan, in a dark coat, looking out over the skyline. When he turned and saw her, his expression softened. You came, he said quietly. I was not sure you would. Neither was I, she admitted. Around them, guests mingled, cameras flashed, and the sound of soft music filled the cold air. Ethan led her toward a small podium where a plaque gleamed under the lights. It read Carter Vale Recovery Center in honor of those who heal others. This place, he said, is built with what was left of my company. I wanted it to mean something real. She smiled faintly. It does. Then she noticed something at the base of the plaquean engraved name. Lena Nguyen, Director of Patient Care. She blinked. Ethan, what is this? A proposal, he said. Not the kind that comes with a ring this time. You always said you wanted to help people without limits. This center is yours to run. For a moment, she could not speak. I do not deserve this, she whispered. Yes, you do, he said. You were the one who believed in healing when I only believed in control. The wind lifted her hair, the sound of the city humming below them. You gave up everything, she said. Maybe, he replied, but I found something better. Cameras turned toward them then, the soft murmur of the crowd building as Ethan stepped back to the microphone. Before we begin tonight's dedication, he said, I want to thank someone who taught me that love is not about contracts or conditions, it is about choice. He looked directly at her. So, this is me choosing. The applause that followed was warm, not the hollow sound of corporate approval, but something real, something human. Lena's eyes filled with tears she did not try to hide. In that moment, under the fading light, the past did not matter. What mattered was that both of them had finally stopped pretending, and for the first time, the truth felt like home. The night of the grand opening lingered in Lena's memory long after the guests had gone. The rooftop lights dimmed, leaving only the glow of the city and the soft hum of the wind between them. Ethan stood by the edge, looking out over Seattle, the reflection of the skyline shimmering in his eyes. Lena walked to stand beside him, her heart steady but full. "You know," she said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were impossible." He smiled faintly. "And now?" "Now I think you are human," she said, her voice trembling just enough to betray how much she meant it. Ethan turned to face her fully. "I did not invite you here for the cameras," he said. "They are gone now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, the original ring from their contract, its surface polished, the platinum catching the rooftop light. "It started as a lie," he said, "but it became the only truth I could not walk away from. I am not asking you to pretend anymore, Lena. I am asking you to stay." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked down at the ring that had once chained her to duty and now symbolized freedom. "You do not owe me this," she whispered. "I owe you everything," he said. "Because you reminded me that love without choice is just another contract." She laughed softly through her tears. "And you always were terrible at keeping contracts." He smiled, stepping closer. "Then let us make one more. One that never expires." He held the ring out, his hand steady, his eyes hopeful. The world around them seemed to slow, the air thick with the scent of rain and the sound of the city below. Lena took a long breath, then nodded. "Yes," she said simply, her voice a whisper and a promise. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and for the first time, it felt right. No cameras, no lies, just two people choosing each other. Later that night, as they walked through the quiet corridors of the new recovery center, Lena stopped by the plaque that bore both their names. She traced the letters with her fingertips and whispered, "It feels different now." Ethan stood behind her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "That is because it is real," he said. The soft light reflected off the metal plate, catching the words beneath their names from contract to choice. Outside, dawn was breaking, painting the city in shades of gold and rose. For the first time, neither of them needed to hide. The man who had built empires had finally found peace, and the woman who had once lost everything had found something that could not be bought: a home, a partner, and a love born from truth. And as the morning sun climbed higher, Ethan whispered what they both already knew. "This is our beginning, not our ending."